Hey everyone, how's it going? I just played a match that I thought was a really good example of sideboard planning in best of 3 draft, and so I thought I'd make a quick video and share with you guys. So this is what we're working with. We got black white, mostly white with kind of a small black splash almost, and splashing red for the kicker on the heroic charge. And so just a quick overview of the deck before we jump into the match itself. Kind of generic white-black stuff, triple Banalish Sleeper, some token makers with the reinforcement, Cavalier, double Love Song, and so mostly we're just looking to curve out and push damage. We have some decent interaction, Destroy Evil, Leyline Binding, and some good rares, Evolve Sleeper, Guardian, and Peacekeeper. So again, just kind of your typical go wide white strategy, with some premium black cards mixed in. Here we have in our sideboard double Runic Shot, Join Forces, Stall for a Time, Artillery Blast for the white cards. Black cards that didn't make it, Battle Rage Blessing and the Swarm, and then a handful of red cards. The way this draft went, I was kind of mostly white and straddling like black and red a little bit, and I got past a really late Aaron I just had in my sideboard from pack 1, like pick 13 or something, and then I picked up like a pick 6 or 7 I think in Ellis in pack 2. And so then I was kind of unsure. I still had these red cards that are solid playables, Goblin Picker 2 and Infusion, which I like. And then I opened a Evolve Sleeper in pack 3. And so I ended up kind of going the black direction here. I thought I had pretty high power black cards, specifically the Ellis Ilcor and the Evolve Sleeper, and I didn't think that any of these were strong enough to warrant splashing, even though I have the double Sacred Peaks. So this was kind of the deck we're working on. So we're going to take a look at one of the matches and discuss sort of sideboard options and how we could go about our sideboarding. Alright, so this is the first match, or the first game of the match. I'm on the play, I believe, and I have all my colors, but 5 lands, 2 spells. Not exciting. I decided to keep it. Having a 3 power 2 drop is, kind of decent on the play specifically, because like if they stumble or if they're playing tap lands, I can push a decent amount of damage. And I have a plan where, like, if I happen to draw any of my token makers, having the sleepers is a way to generate some value. Not ideal. I could see mulliganing this hand maybe. It's kind of close. But I think this deck does need to hit its 2-drop and kind of curve out. And this hand does that, even though it has some extra lands. So I figured it's probably worth the keep. I usually don't like to mull a lot. If my hand is functional and, kind of does what my deck is planning to do. So here, not too much happening. Play a 2-drop. Opponent goes Mountain Plains, hit for 3, and I'm just drawing lands. I have a Take Up the Shield, and here, more lands, hit for 6. So I'm already doing a decent amount of damage here. Opponent's at 11. And they play Captain's Call, which is incredible versus what I'm doing, which is mostly nothing. Yeah, so I can't really attack in right now. I don't want to use the Heroic Charge to eat like 2 tokens, especially when I'm 1 mana away from being able to kick it for the trample to push more damage. So here, just pass the turn. They play 2/3 flyer. And here I have the mana now to kick the Heroic Charge for the trample damage. So I'm ready to swing just to push some damage. The most likely blocks I expect are 1/1s on each of them. And so I'm basically saying I'm going to use my Heroic Charge to kill 2 1/1s and push a total of, it would be 8 damage, putting them to 3. So that's the plan, goes as expected. And they play another flyer, hit for 3. I draw another land. Here they have the Citizen's Arrest. They swing here. I thought this was interesting too, because they're at face value leaving themselves dead to a removal spell, which kind of makes me think either they have a removal spell of their own, or maybe again they're just trying to pressure to end the game as fast as possible, given that they're at 3 and they don't know if I'm splashing like a Lightning Strike or something, which is also reasonable. Like, I don't think that they should necessarily just be playing scared. But yeah, I thought this looked a little aggressive to me, so I took note of it. Here, I don't want to attack into the 1/1. Drew Destroy Evil for my turn. So here they send in, and at this point, I was thinking that my best shot was take the damage, destroy evil the citizens arrest end of turn, and hopefully if they only have like one more creature or something, that I can just sneak a win or something. So they go to Inferno, followed by Heroic Charge, and so now that plan is out the window. I can't take this damage, I'll die. So then I'm Destroy Eviling one of the flyers. Go to 2, and I'm thinking that from this spot, I'm not in good shape per se, but it's not that bad because I'm thinking, okay, cool, they'll play a creature. I'll swing, they have to block. I can take up the shield, gain 4. I go to 6. They have 3 power in play. Even if they play a creature, you know, I hit for 3 in the air. It's not great, but it's salvageable. And their last creature is a Baird, which then it makes a 1/1, and now that plan is looking a lot worse. So another land. Here I have to swing because I'm going to die. They block, take up the shield. I'm at 6. They have to just have actual nothing, which they do not. So then that's the end. So here, again, just quick inventory of things my opponent played. We have a Citizen's Arrest, Baird, and kind of generic go-wide stuff. I noticed the abundance of the Griffin Protectors. They had at least 2, I think, that we saw. Yeah, and I noticed they have a Twinferno and some combat tricks, Heroic Charge for the go-wide, and they have Captain's Call. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the deck and see what we come up with for a sideboard plan. Okay, so this is the original deck, and I would already mention briefly before what's in the sideboard. If you guys wanted, you're welcome to pause it, see if you guys can come up with a plan for yourself, and maybe you have an idea different than I did, or figure out what things should go in, what things should go out, and what our options are. And then I'll show you what I did, and we'll take a look. All right, so this is where I ended up. And I think this is a little bit counterintuitive, which is why I thought this was a really good example. I actually sideboarded out of my black cards, which is weird because my black cards are some of my best cards, right, between Ellis Okor and Evolve Sleeper. But so the reason I did this was, it was really strange actually. I thought that the stats on my red creatures lined up a lot better versus what they were doing. So I noticed they have, some 1/1s, in particular the Captain's Call, and I noticed they make tokens off the, whatever this card is called, the Strike Team, makes tokens as well, and presumably they have some other things with that effect in their deck. I noticed multiple Griffin Protectors, which made me kind of suspect that they have more token makers than just those 2 cards. I don't know that, but again, that's something that would make sense given what we saw. So I actually wanted these, but of course I can't play these in the deck the way that the mana was set up, right? It was mostly white-black with a light red splash, so I can't be splashing these 2-drops. So if I want to play the 2-drops, that means that I have to, change my mana base around and potentially move into red. Also, I thought that the strike teams were decent too, because going wide as a way to combat your opponent going wide is not too unreasonable. Of course, trying to trade off all your 1/1s for their 1/1s runs the risk of getting blown out by Heroic Charge. But again, I am on the play since I lost, and so I have some argument too that I could just end up being the beatdown, and again, strike team is a way to both generate some amount of value versus their strategy and to be aggressive. So as far as things that I took out, because you'll notice there's actually 6 red cards here, and we only had 3 black cards in the deck. Note that I also cut the 3 Benelish Sleepers. So these are not good versus the token strategies for kind of clear reasons. In addition to being able to be blocked easily, they have tokens lying around they can sack. So, I'm not really generating value by having this at all, even if I have tokens of my own. So I thought the stats of these didn't line up well, and I wanted the stats on my red creatures to basically having 2 toughness. And if the games go a little grindier, then having like Goblin Picker has some value. Instant speed interaction seems pretty nice. It hits their strike team, and if they're going to have like combat tricks, Furious Bellow, take up the shield, things like that on like their tokens at all, then this gives me a way to interact, which I like. So this is sort of the plan I went for. I think this is correct. some other things I considered are that the runic shots are not unreasonable versus the couple flyers we saw. They kind of get big boosts from like trading up on mana 4 for 1 pretty regularly. But I decided against including them on the play specifically because I think I'd rather be more proactive on the play. But then this gives me an option as to something to side into on the draw if I win the next game. I also consider the join forces, but I don't really like, in general, I'm not a huge fan of this card. And then even additionally, I don't think that I wanted to have join forces be like my plan versus them. First of all, they have some flyers that this doesn't really interact with because I don't have many flyers of my own, just like a single Griffin Protector, I think. Well, I guess I have these love songs, so there is some small argument to that, but that still, I don't like relying on using a combat trick to play defense, because again, all it takes is for them to have their own combat trick, and all of a sudden it's looking way worse. So I decided against including this as well. So this is what it looked like. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. So here's game 2. We're on the play, 4 lands, 3 spells, have Peacekeeper. Again, I really would want a 2-drop, but I'm not going to throw this back. Here, they play turn 2 Branch Rider, hit for 1. Interesting just on a decision standpoint. I think a lot of people would kind of on instinct use the Infusion here, just because it prevents a damage against an aggressive deck, and it trades 1 for 1, and the like I'm going to be tapping out-ish for the next several turns. Maybe not tapping out. Again, I'm tapping out next turn for certain because I have 2 3-drops. And the next turn after that, maybe I'm not tapping out and I can use it. But I opted against it for the reason that 2 reasons. First of all, I saw that they have a Baird in their deck, which is a pretty high priority target, and I don't have a lot of good ways to interact. I have like the Citizen's Arrest and the Leyline Binding, but that like something like Destroy Evil doesn't hit Baird, for example. And additionally, I kept it because I thought there would be some scenarios where I can get extra mana from them by keeping the Flowstone Infusion. And I think that what's interesting is that versus these aggressive decks, usually getting ahead on mana is more important than staying ahead on life. Obviously, there's some amount of like context required there, because if you're at like 5, then obviously you'll wish you hadn't taken a bunch of damage. But at the same time, I'm only taking 1 to do this. I get to play out a blocker next turn, and if I can entice them into either using this to pump, or using a combat trick on it at some point where I can then get it with the Flowstone Infusion, that's a way larger upside to me than preventing 1 damage. So I'm actually going to forgo using my mana this turn and not using Fusion. Here we play out both blockers with the Cavalier. Interestingly enough, I could play the Peacekeeper, but I think I'd rather just have both bodies in play. If I play the Peacekeeper and they send in, I'm not going to block it, and so this actually prevents the damage, because I'm certainly more than willing to put a 1/1 in front of theirs. Or depending on what happens, I might even put the 2/2 in to entice the mana, again, just because it wastes their turn and I can just do something after. Probably the 1/1 if they send. Yeah, I like this better. Also, the Cavalier can still hit for the same amount of damage next turn. No Vigilance, but also, I notice most of the things that I care about them doing happen on 4 mana, so there's not an urgency for me to play the Peacekeeper on my turn 3, because being on the play, right, then I would be doing it into their 3 mana on their turn, and I honestly don't remember anything that I care that much about for them doing for 3 mana. So here, they just passed the turn, so here, this is interesting. I think I made a mistake here. I think what I should have done is Peacekeeper pre-combat, so I can see what they have, and then if they don't have anything relevant, then I can Flowstone and then just get in the full 3 damage. The way I played it, I just sent both. Again, I get their mana here. I don't know, maybe they had nothing to do with their mana anyways, so maybe I took an extra damage. But if, for example, they did this as a plan because they thought they needed or wanted to trade off with this Cavalier, then me not having used this Infusion is pretty good for me, I think. So they pump it, I Infusion, and then post-combat do this. And so here they have these cards. And And so I have to figure out what to name with the Peacekeeper. I think I ended up naming the Fury Rider here with the idea that if they want to develop their board, then that means they have to play the Keldon Strike Team unkicked and lose some value to do so. And if they don't do that, then they're getting hit by a lot of damage. Alternatively, if I played this out, or if I named the strike team, then they could play the Rider, which is like not the end of the world, and also like I could just then hit for 6. But it's a little more awkward because if I do that, then I say, okay, I'm okay with you trading with a Peacekeeper, and then the strike team is not taxed anymore. So I think that this was the right name. I'm not going to name any of the combat tricks because they don't have a board, and they have to tap out to create a board, which means they won't have the tricks up, at least in the short term. So here they play the strike team. Here, I crew this up. I expect that they're going to trade with it. I think there's basically no world where they don't. But given that this is still preventing them from casting their 4-drop, I don't want to trade it off with this thing, and I'm still going to be attacking. So I'm just going to do this so that if, in whatever reason, they don't want to trade this off, they're now more incentivized to do so, because they always have the option to trade this as long as I send the 2/2 anyways. Here, Captain's Call and make a 4/4. And so they play this 1/3 and then Smash to Dust. So this is pretty interesting too. I believe the only cards I showed them game 1 were 2 Benelish Sleepers, a Destroy Evil, and a Take Up the Shield. So I mean, it's not unreasonable for them to bring it in. It's good against the Benelish Sleepers. But this is something that is interesting just from a sideboarding discussion, which was kind of the main point of the video, in that sometimes when you change your game plan or deck construction, then it can leave cards stranded for your opponent. Now, that's certainly not the case here, right? This Smash to Dust is very good versus my board. They get 4 of the tokens. But just something to consider, right? That, like, you can think about what your opponent's going to likely sideboard in as well. Like if, for example, you think, or even things that you had seen, like, so imagine I hadn't sided out of white-black, and now I saw this, and I had a way to adjust my creature base. Now I think that it makes more sense to be in white-red than if I had still been in the white-black with the Benner Sleepers, because then I would limit my exposure to Smash to Dust. And you can see this too with things like maybe opponents who board in like Broken Wings too liberally, right? And so you have like 2 flyers and they saw them in one game. The next game you see that they have Broken Wings. You can side out your flyers, and then if they draw the Broken Wings, you strand them with a dead card in their hand. So just something to think about for sideboarding purposes. And here again, I think it's totally reasonable that they cited it in against what I was doing before, like white-black token stuff. It looked like, it's perfectly good card. So anyways, here, note that they have a Furious Bellow and a Heroic Charge in hand, but since they had to tap out to do their double spell, they only have 1 white. I get to get in for a chunk of damage, play out the 2/1. Now they get to play this. I'm at this point, I no longer care if this trades off. It's just a 3/3 Vigilance, which is a good creature, but it's not a high priority thing. It's not taxing their mana anymore. So here, send everything. They play their flyer. Send for 1. I can't really block here because they have Furious Bellow, and I don't want to trade the Peacekeeper for their combat trick, given that I don't have any way to attack back anyways. If, for example, doing so opened up new attacks because they don't represent the Furious Bellow anymore, then it's more defensible, I think. But as it stands, I'm just going to take the 1. Land, go, they hit me, and then so here I play out my flyer. They, again, same attack. I don't want to run any blocks, and so here I draw a 2-drop, pump, send for 3, they go to 5. And they send the same attack here. I'm okay now blocking with the Guardian, which, by the way, I think I played a land last turn or 2 turns ago, which was probably bad in hindsight. I forgot this card was in my deck. But anyways, so now I'm blocking the 1/3, and because now if they want to use a trick, I'm perfectly happy to trade my planes for it. And same thing if they want to use the Heroic Charge, which maybe is reasonable for them, assuming they're like on a land plus their 2 tricks. Again, I'm still okay to just use the planes to save this, which is what happens. They also then have the Take Up the Shield, so they're going to 10, so it puts them a little further out of reach. And here I have a really interesting decision. So when I go to combat, if I crew the 2/1, then this makes this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I can send with everything. And if they don't trump with the 1 3, then I can flash this in for lethal on the +1 triggers. Now, if they do chump this, then I'm in kind of a strange position. So I gain 1 off the Herbalist. I'm at 7. But then the Protector gets to hit me. It's currently a 3/4 with the counter on it. And so I was thinking, okay, so I don't die to Lightning Strike. I don't die to Furious Bellow. I don't die to I don't die to any one thing that I can think of, like Captain's Call. Again, I don't die to. I guess if I did that, I would die to Strike Team, though, which is kind of relevant. So I decided that I should take the more cautious line, especially given that I'm gaining life from here and that I'm scrying off the Guardian. So I think if the game extends a little bit longer, that would benefit me. And here, assuming they don't chump, then they're taking 7 damage to 3. So I think I'm better served to not go for it here. And so here, I scry, put a Plains on the bottom. The scry was from the Herbalist. Then I scry from the Guardian. I see Destroy Evil, which I think locks up the game pretty well. And Goblin Picker, which I just leave there because, it's a creature. It's fine. They take it like expected. And they send. And so here, I know that they have Furious Bellow still. That was another reason, by the way, about why going for it felt a little bit scarier, because I know for a fact they have the Bellow that would put it to 6. And then if they just draw like a creature, then it would be lethal if I was tapped out and they jumped with the 1/3. Here, I go for the blocks both on the Faith Bonder and on the Protector, because my opponent doesn't know, but I mean, these are both good blocks given that I have the instant speed pump from the reinforcements. And so then they can only each save one of them with their trick, and then the other one gets eaten, assuming they have nothing. And if they have, Fierce Bellow plus something else, then I still have lethal on the crackback. So I think I'm just in great shape here. Goes pretty much as planned, and so we get the win. So going on to the next one. Note that here I sideboarded differently again. So here I cut one of the semi-herbalists on the draw. Again, I've also seen that they have the 1 damage to everything, so this makes that slightly worse. And then I put in a runic shot for the reasons we discussed the first time we were sideboarding. Now being on the draw, I think it's less likely that I can win just by aggro and having a more proactive game plan. So having something more reactionary to stop their game plan, gains value. So here, things that are like reaction-based removal spells or like things that are defensive typically will play better on the draw, especially things that are mana efficient. So like here, the fact that the runic shot is likely killing something that costs significantly more mana than it means that it allows you to stabilize on the draw better, and that's when your extra card matters more once you're stable. So that's sort of the game plan here. I could put in the second runic shot, but honestly I didn't know what to cut. Like on one hand, I could cut like another herbalist, but then my 2-drop slot is getting a little light, and I am still at its core like a proactive deck. Also, the love songs get significantly worse if you're not landing something on 2. So I didn't want to cut another 2-drop. I could cut like a strike team, but I think they're just good given that I'm in the white-red version right now. I didn't bring in the second runic shot, but I think an argument could be made to do so. If you guys have any suggestions or thoughts as to what, if you were going to bring it in, what you would cut, I'd love to hear them. But okay, so then we can just look at game 3. I mean, that's pretty much it for the sideboard parts. So if that was all you're here for, feel free to to take off. But I'll go through the last game anyways, just in case anyone wanted to see it. So this one, game 3, I have a 1-lander, can't keep. I'm on the draw, so I throw it back. This one looks much better. So here I have to put back something. I end up putting back the Griffin Protector, which is interesting because on one hand they have flyers, and this is a flyer, so it's one way to like block them as a 2/3. But on the other hand, blocking isn't the best strategy against what they're doing probably anyways, because all it takes is for them to pre-combat a creature, and this isn't actually a blocker. And then also I know that they have now Furious Bellow, they have Heroic Charge, and so like it doesn't seem like a good plan. I'd rather just have a 2-drop and my choice of 3 drops. And again here, adding a counter to this makes it attack through more things, which is kind of nice. I know they have like a 1/3, so you know, I think I'm just gonna throw back this and keep my lands. Here, get hit for 1. I drew a 2-drop, or a better 2-drop, which is awesome. They hit, play the 2/2, and they don't swing for reasons that, you know, I can just block. Even if they pump, you know, it's still trading for a card. I can just discard a land. So here, they don't do anything, which I thought was interesting. So I start with the Peacekeeper. And so from here, I could name either Protector or Captain's Call. And so I just got Protector because they have 2 of them, first of all. And secondly, I'm not especially afraid of Captain's Call right now. They can make some 1/1s and put counters on them. But the all my creatures block them pretty well, so I'm not too concerned. And I did make what I think might be a decision some people might not. I didn't swing with the Guardian. And the idea being that they have the option to use Take Up the Shield, and yes, I get that card, but I kind of want the cards in my hand, given that I now have a strike team. I want to get to 5 lands, and so it's not like I'm discarding a extra card that I don't need in order to make that attack. Yes, I get their Take Up the Shield, but I'm discarding something relevant, and so I don't think that I want to do that. And also, I noticed that they only have access to 1 white mana, so they're not going to be able to keep this up if they're going to be casting their spells, you know, Captain's Call or later on the Griffin Protector, unless they draw another white source. So I can actually wait until they're tapped out of white and don't have that option before I make that attack. And also then if they insist on leaving up Take Up the Shield, then it's costing them basically their whole turn because all their cards are white and they only have 1 white mana. So here we go to the draw step. They passed the turn, which I was actually really surprised by the way. I thought they were just going to cast their Captain's Call, which I thought would be very reasonable. Instead, they're leaving up the Take Up the Shield. So here, I'll play my tap land. And again, same idea as before. I'm just not going to attack. I don't want to discard any of the cards in my hand. I want them all for, you know, the long game, which is kind of my plan at the moment. And so, yeah, if they just want to keep not using their mana every turn, I'm happy to do that. I'm going to have a flyer now. I can put a counter on things so that, like, I can put a counter on the Peacekeeper so that it can attack through a single pump from here later on if that's what I want to do. So that's the plan. There you go, land and pass again. Again, I'm perfectly happy to let them do this. My draw was Leyline Binding, so now I'm starting to think that I can start to pressure a little bit more. Put the counters on here, the 4/4 and the 2/2. And yeah, the idea for me was that, like, if they want to block and pump and go for Take Up the Shield, I'm okay to Leyline Binding that, because again, then they have no board. Their Captain's Call now is looking much worse because it doesn't have any good blocks if they cast it. They still are on 1 white mana. And if they spend their turn casting the Griffin Protector, I have great attacks and they don't have good blocks, so they're going down quite a bit on life. Here sending, they pump, and just as expected, I'm just going to Leyline Binding it. And so here they play Griffin Protector. I'm just hasting things out. Again, I have pretty good attacks here. I don't want to attack the 2/2 into their 2/3, but I can use it to enlist to make this bigger. They run the no blocks, take 11, they're down to 7, and my position is looking pretty good, minus some like crazy lethal off of the Griffin Protector and the Twin Strike. And so here again, I am taking a hit for 6, which is quite a bit, and they now have a board to block. So, you know, this game is a little closer than it looked, you know, a turn ago. But here, I still have attacks. So I'm ascending all of these, enlisting with the 3/1. So here representing lethal. So with this 2, they're essentially at 5. They can afford to take this, but I have to Take Up the Shield if they do. So they kind of need to go for blocks on both. And so they chump here and put the 2/2 in front of here. I just discard the Steel Crusher here, since I think that's my worst creature. I thought about just doing the Take Up the Shield just to gain the life so that I don't randomly die to like double strike stuff. But I figured if they have the Twin Strike and they would need, they would need Twin Strike and another way to pump this by a lot. So like Twin Strike plus Fierce Bellow still doesn't do it. It would have to be like Twin Strike plus, Captain's Call, I guess, would do it. But yeah, maybe I should have actually. It's pretty close. I figured if they are attacking on the ground though, then I don't have to be worried about heroic charge because then I have blocks to stop the damage and gain the life. But yeah, maybe I should have just used the take up the shield. But anywho, play out my creature. They just play another Griffin Protector, and that's the game. So yeah, that was sort of the match. Let me know if you guys had any other suggestions as far as the sideboarding or anything, and I hope it was useful to you. Thanks.